There is a very specific modern anxiety that I don't think existed 20 years ago. It's a very particular feeling. It happens when your phone buzzes, you look down, and you see a notification from someone you haven't spoken to since, 10th grade biology class.
Oh, I know this feeling. The dreaded blast from the past notification.
Right, and for a split second, your brain goes to a nice place. You think, oh, look at that. Sarah from homeroom is reaching out. She probably wants to reconnect, maybe catch up on the last 15 years.
Yeah, a genuine connection.
And you open the message, and it starts with, hey, girl, I hope you're doing amazing. I was just looking at your profile.
And I thought you had such a great vibe.
And your stomach just drops because you know immediately that Sarah does not care about your vibe. Sarah's not asking about your kids.
Nope.
Sarah's about to pitch you an opportunity.
She wants you to be your own boss.
Yes.
Or she wants to sell you leggings.
Oh.
Or essential oils. Or a weight loss shake that tastes like chalk and ambition.
Exactly. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are tackling that feeling. We are diving into the world behind that hey hun message.
We're talking about multi-level marketing, MLM.
And I have to say, looking at the stack of research you've brought to the table today, this goes a lot deeper and gets a lot darker than just annoying Facebook messages.
It really does. It's a topic that sits right at this weird, uncomfortable intersection of business, psychology, and the law.
Yeah.
And honestly, the hey hen message is just the very tip of the iceberg.
The tip of the iceberg, how?
When you dig into the government investigations, the lawsuits, and the financial disclosures we have here, you find a massive gap.
A gap between what?
A gap between the promise, the financial freedom, the yacht, the retiring your husband, the mathematical reality of what actually happens to the money.
The promise versus the reality. That is really the hook for today, isn't it?
It has to be.
Because let's be honest, nobody signs up for these things saying, I can't wait to annoy my friends and lose $5,000.
No, of course not. They sign up because they are being sold a dream. The pitch is almost never about the soap or the vitamins.
Really? Not at all.
I mean, if you look at the marketing materials we have from the Direct Selling Association and these individual companies, the product is often completely peripheral.
So what's the real product then?
The real product on offer is the lifestyle. It's fire your boss. It's time freedom. It is the lifestyle you deserve.
Which is a powerful pitch. We all want that. But today, we are going to be the buzzkills. We're going to look past the marketing pitch and look at the mechanics.
Right.
We've got a stack of sources here. We're talking FTC rulings, independent studies, government inquiries from the UK, and industry data. And we are going to try to answer a few basic questions.
Like, how does this model actually work?
Yes. And what are the real odds? Not the Instagram odds, the real odds of making money.
And the big one, why, if the numbers are as bad as they look, is this industry still legal?
Exactly.
And I think we need a quick tone check before we dive in. We aren't here to mock the people who join these things.
No, absolutely not. That's not the point.
Many people view this as legitimate entrepreneurship. They're trying to better their lives, support their families, maybe pay for dance lessons or a new car.
They're chasing a dream.
They are. But the source material we are working with today presents some very heavy criticism and some truly stark statistical data regarding financial losses. So we're going to look at this strictly through the lens of the available data.
Okay, so let's strip it down to the studs. What exactly is multi-level marketing? If I'm explaining this to my skeptical uncle at Thanksgiving who thinks everything on the internet is a scam, how do we define it?
Okay, so at its core, MLM is a marketing strategy, but it's a specific kind. It's a system where a company decides we aren't going to hire a sales team and we aren't going to pay for TV commercials or put our stuff in Walmart.
Okay, so how do they move the product? No ads, no stores?
They use a non-salaried workforce. These are independent participants.
Independent, so not employees.
Right. They don't get benefits. They don't get a guaranteed check. They have titles like associate, independent business owner, or affiliate.
Which sounds very corporate and official.
It's designed to. But the key differentiator, the thing that makes it MLM and not just, selling knives door to door, is how they get paid.
The compensation plan.
Right. And this is where we have to talk about shapes. Because the earnings come from a pyramid-shaped or binary commission system.
You said the P word, pyramid-shaped. We are going to be using that word a lot today, I have a feeling.
We are. But, strictly speaking, regarding the money, there are two streams.
Okay, two streams.
Stream one is the traditional one, direct sales. You have a bottle of vitamins. You sell it to your neighbor Bob, you earn a commission. Simple.
That sounds like normal retail. That's
Yeah.
the Avon lady from the 1950s, right? Ding dong, here's your lipstick.
Exactly. And if it stayed there, we wouldn't be doing a deep dive on it. That is just commerce.
But there's a second stream.
But it is the second stream that defines MLM. Participants also earn commissions based on the wholesale purchases made by other sellers they have recruited.
This is the downline.
Correct. So you recruit Bob, Bob recruits Sarah, Sarah recruits Mike. You are now earning a slice of everything Bob, Sarah, and Mike buy from the company.
So their purchases generate a kickback for me.
Exactly. You are incentivized to build this chain of distributors beneath you.
So visually, like, take a picture for everyone. At the top, I'm the blue individual in the diagram they always show, and I'm getting paid off the red members below me and the people they bring in and so on.
That is the visual often used in the explainer videos.
Yeah.
And this is where the incentive structure gets really interesting. Because if you look at the compensation plans, and we have looked at a few for this deep dive, the system is designed to incentivize recruiting others just as much, if not more, than selling the actual product to a real customer.
Why is that? Why not just sell the soap? It seems simpler.
Because of leverage. Think about it. If I sell a bar of soap, I make, say, $1. But if I recruit 10 people who each sell a bar of soap, and I get 50 cents from each of them, I made $5 without doing the selling myself. The system pushes you to build the tree, not to move the inventory.
The focus shifts from sales to recruitment.
Entirely.
And that leads to a really common point of confusion that I want to clear up right now. Is MLM the same thing as direct selling?
Yes. The terminology game.
Because I hear these terms used interchangeably, but I also hear people in the industry get very defensive about the distinction.
It is a murky area. It's a bit of a squares and rectangles situation. Some sources, like the author Dominique Zardel, describe network marketing and multi-level marketing as synonymous.
Okay.
They classify them both as a type of direct selling. So all MLM is direct selling, but not all direct selling is MLM.
But the industry itself tries to separate them.
Well, yes and no. Historically, it has shifted dramatically. I've found this data point from the Direct Selling Association, the DSA, absolutely fascinating.
This is the lobbying group for the industry, right? Their main trade group.
The big one. In 1990, only 25% of DSA members used the MLM business model.
Only a quarter. So the vast majority were just selling stuff, the old-fashioned way.
Right. Single-level marketing. You sell a vacuum, you get paid.
Yeah.
End of transaction. It was companies like Kirby Vacuums or the old-school encyclopedia sellers.
I remember those.
But by 2009, get this, that number had jumped to 94.2%.
Wow. So in 20 years, the entire industry basically mutated.
Effectively, yes.
Yeah.
Nearly the entire direct selling industry became MLM. You have companies like Avon, Tupperware names that are synonymous with that traditional door-to-door vibe. They eventually introduced multi-level compensation plans.
Why the shift? Was it just more profitable?
It's incredibly profitable for the company. Think about it from their perspective.
Okay.
If you are a corporation, you don't have to pay for a sales force. You don't have salaries, no health care, no 401k.
Right, they're independent.
In fact, your sales force pays you for the privilege of working. They buy the starter kit. They buy the inventory to meet their quotas.
It shifts all the risk from the corporation to the individual.
All of it. That is a brilliant business model for the corporation.
And the people at the very, very top of the pyramid.
Precisely. And the critics argue that this shift in terminology, using words like interactive distribution or relationship marketing, is really just a way to distance the model from the negative stigma of pyramid schemes.
Well, let's talk about that stigma. Because you don't get a stigma like pyramid scheme without some fire behind the smoke. We need to talk about the economics of the opportunity.
Yes. Let's look at the numbers.
Because this is where the promise versus reality hook really comes into play. The promise is financial freedom. The promise is a Mercedes in the driveway. What do the stats actually say?
The stats are, honestly, they are brutal.
How brutal?
According to a comprehensive study of 350 MLM companies in the United States, which was cited by the Consumer Awareness Institute, at least 99% of recruits lose money.
I want to stop you there. I want to make sure I heard that right. Not 9%, not 19, 99.
At least 99%. One niner.
So if I walk into a stadium with 100,000 MLM participants, 99,000 of them are losing money. They're in the red.
Yes. And when we say lose money, we don't just mean they didn't get rich. We mean they have less money in their bank account than when they started. After you factor in their costs, they are at a net loss.
That is worse than gambling.
It is. And we will get to that comparison in a minute because it's a really powerful one. But the key thing to understand is that This isn't just bad luck.
It's not just, oh, most small businesses fail.
No. This is a structural necessity of the model.
What do you mean by structural necessity? Why can't everyone just win?
Think about the geometry. Think about the money flow. For the person at the top, the diamond, the double platinum, whatever silly title they use, to make that $1 million check, that money has to come from somewhere.
It doesn't appear out of thin air.
It flows up from the bottom, from the thousands or tens of thousands of people below them buying starter kits and products.
So for one person to win big, 1,000 people have to lose.
Mathematically, yes. The largest proportion of participants must operate at a net loss to fund the commissions of the tiny fraction at the top. It's not a bug, it's a feature of the compensation plan.
We have some specific examples in the source material that really illustrate this. I was reading through the notes on the Amway case in the UK. This wasn't just a blog post. This was a government investigation, right?
This was a major legal battle. The UK government actually tried to shut them down. In 2008, a High Court judge, Justice Norris, issued a ruling that laid it all bare.
And what did he find?
He found that out of an independent business owner population of 33,000 people in the UK,
33,000 people. A small city.
only about 90, that's 90 people made sufficient incomes to cover the costs of actively building their business.
Wait, 90 people. Not 90%, not 900, 90 humans.
90 humans out of 33,000. That translates to a 99.7% loss rate.
That is staggering. I mean, I don't know what to say to that.
It gets worse. The investigation revealed that less than 1 in 10 agents, less than 10%, sold a single item of the group's products to an actual retail customer.
So nobody is selling the soap.
Nobody is selling the soap. They're just recruiting other people to buy the soap from the company.
And the company is the only one making money on the product sales.
That's scale, yes.
And it isn't just Amway. We have data on Mona V as well. That's the acai berry juice, right? The miracle juice from the Amazon.
Yes, the purple juice that was everywhere in the late 2000s. Monavi's own 2007 income disclosure statement, so this is their own data they publish, showed that fewer than 1% of participants even qualified for commissions.
So 99% didn't even get a check. They paid to be in and got nothing back.
Correct. And of that tiny 1% who did qualify, only 10% of them made more than $100 a week.
So let's do that math. That's 10% of 1%. So 1 out of every 1,000 people made more than $100 a week before costs.
Before costs. Gas money, maybe?
And then look at Fortune High-Tech Marketing. This is another one that got into hot water.
A big one. The FTC went after them.
And their documents revealed that 30% of its representatives made absolutely no money, and of the remaining 70%, 54% made only $93 a month.
Again, gross income.
And here is the kicker. That $93 a month,
Yeah.
That's gross income, right? That's before you pay for anything.
Exactly. And the costs are a huge part of this that people don't see up front. It's not just that you aren't making money. You are actively spending money to be there. This is the pay-to-play aspect.
Walk me through the costs, because the pitch is usually low startup cost, just $99 to start your business.
The $99 is just the entry fee, the ticket to the game.
Okay.
Then you have to buy the marketing kit. Then you have to buy the samples. Then you often have to pay for training seminars, conferences, websites, back office software.
And the big one you mentioned, the monthly minimum.
The monthly minimums. Many of these compensation plans have a rule. To stay active and be eligible to collect your commission check, you personally have to buy or sell a certain amount of product every month. Let's say it's $200.
Okay, so I need to move $200 of vitamins.
But what if you don't? What if you only sell $50 worth to your neighbors?
Then I'm out of luck on my commissions for that month.
Unless you buy the other $150 worth yourself.
Oh.
This is called garage qualifying. You buy the product yourself just to stay qualified for a commission that might not even cover the cost of the product you just bought. You end up with a garage full of expiring vitamins.
This is the internal consumption issue mentioned in the notes.
Right. A major criticism of the model is that the distributors themselves are the primary customers. The money isn't coming from outside the system. It's just churning inside, moving from the lower levels up to the top.
You mentioned gambling earlier. There is a comparison in the notes here that I think puts this into a really sharp perspective.
Yes, this comes from the skeptic Brian Dunning. He crunched the numbers on Las Vegas.
I love a good Vegas analogy, so what's the deal?
So if you go to a casino and play the slots or roulette, the house has an edge. We all know that.
The house always wins.
Exactly. Roughly 97% of gamblers will lose money in the long run.
Okay, so a 97% loss rate? That's bad.
It's bad. But in some MLMs, as we just saw with Amway UK, the loss rate is 99.7% or even 99.9%.
So statistically speaking, I am safer putting my life savings on Red 23 at a roulette table than I am joining an MLM.
In terms of simply retaining your capital, the math suggests yes, the casino appears to be the safer bet.
That's incredible.
And at least in a casino, you get free drinks while you lose your money. In an MLM, you alienate your friends and family while you lose your money.
That is a devastating way to put it. But it brings us to the big legal question. If the numbers are this bad, and if the structure looks like a pyramid and acts like a pyramid, is it a pyramid scheme? Why aren't the police kicking down the doors?
That is the billion-dollar question. And the answer is complicated. It's a very, very fine line.
A legal gray area.
A huge one. The U.S. Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, has a specific stance on this.
What is the official stance? How do they define it?
They say that if the money you make is based primarily on the number of recruits rather than sales to the public, it is an illegal pyramid scheme.
Okay, so that seems clear. If you are getting paid to recruit, it's illegal. But we just established that the compensation plans incentivize recruiting. So how do they get away with it?
Because they sell a product. This is the legal shield. As long as there is a tube of lipstick or a bottle of vitamins changing hands, the companies argue that they aren't pyramid schemes, they're just multi-level marketing.
So the product is like a get-out-of-jail-free card.
In many ways, yes. It provides the veneer of a legitimate retail business. The key question for regulators is this product being sold to real customers, or is it just being consumed inside the distributor network?
And that must be incredibly hard to prove.
Very. But the danger of pyramiding, as the FTC calls it, is the burn rate.
The burn rate.
Schemes collapse when no new distributors can be recruited. It's called market saturation. If I recruit 5 people, and they each recruit 5 people, and they each recruit 5.
The numbers get huge fast.
Exponentially.
Yeah.
By the time you get to the 13th or 14th layer, you have exceeded the population of the Earth.
So eventually you run out of humans.
Exactly. And when you run out of humans to recruit, the bottom falls out. The new recruits can't find anyone to sign up, so they quit and lose their investment. And the people just above them stop getting commissions, so they quit. It creates a collapse from the bottom up.
But these companies operate openly. They're in all 50 states. They have naming rights on stadiums. How do they survive without collapsing?
Well, many of them walk a legal tightrope. And there's a constant churn of new recruits replacing those who quit. But to understand how they stay legal, we have to look at the landmark cases. The biggest one is arguably Inri Amway Corp. from 1979.
This is the grandfather of all MLM cases. What happened there?
The FTC investigated Amway, and in a decision that shaped the entire industry, they found that Amway was not illegal per se.
Not illegal.
But,
And this is a big but.
they were found guilty of price fixing and making exaggerated income claims.
So false advertising about how much money people could make.
Exactly. But the ruling essentially established that multi-level marketing could be a legitimate business model if certain retail sales rules were followed. Things like requiring distributors to sell to actual retail customers.
So 1979 gave them the green light as long as they followed a certain playbook.
It gave them a playbook. It created a legal path for MLM to exist. But not every company follows the playbook.
Right, let's talk about the ones that got caught. Fortune High-Tech Marketing, for example. You mentioned them earlier.
Fortune High-Tech is a great example of what happens when you cross the line. They were eventually declared a pyramid scheme by the FTC and several states.
What were they doing wrong?
The courts found that the vast majority of the money was coming from signing up new recruits, not from selling their products, which were things like satellite TV services and home security.
So they failed the FTC's main test.
They failed it spectacularly. The FTC stepped in, shut them down, and returned checks totaling more than $3.7 million to the victims.
That's a lot of money, but I bet it was a drop in the bucket compared to what people lost.
Oh, absolutely. A tiny fraction. And then there is Vemma.
The energy drink company. I remember seeing those cans everywhere on college campuses. Vemma Verve.
That was their target market, college students. They pitched it as an alternative to a summer job. Don't go to class, start a business.
That's a tempting pitch for a 19-year-old.
Very. But the FTC went after them hard. They filed a complaint and got a temporary restraining order, essentially freezing their assets.
And what was the outcome?
They eventually settled, and the court order required Vemma to restructure their business completely.
What did the order say? What did they have to change?
This is crucial. It required that a majority of sales be made to the general public, not to the distributors themselves. And they were banned from making the kinds of income claims that got them in trouble.
So it's an enforcement of that customer versus recruit distinction we talked about. You have to prove people outside your system are actually buying your stuff.
That is the heart of it.
It's interesting to look at how other countries handle this because the U.S. seems to have a legal until proven otherwise approach. It feels very libertarian. Let the buyer beware.
It is.
But looking at the international landscape, it is very different.
Very different. If you want to see the polar opposite of the U.S. approach, look at China.
What is the situation in China?
Multi-level marketing, as we know it, is strictly banned there.
A total ban, like no Amway, no Herbalife. How does it work?
Well, it's complicated. The practice itself, the multi-level payment structure, was prohibited in 1998. The government cited social, economic, and taxation issues. They essentially viewed it as disruptive to the social order.
Disruptive to the social order. That sounds intense.
They followed up with further regulations in 2005, specifically prohibiting the downline structure in chain recruitment.
So you can't have that tree of compensation.
Correct. Clause 3 of Chapter 2 of the regulation explicitly states that having downlines and paying based on recruitment is illegal.
But I know for a fact that big MLM companies operate in China. I've seen the sales figures. It's a huge market for them. How do they do that if it's illegal?
They adapt, or they try to circumvent. Some companies obtain direct sales licenses, which are permitted but strictly regulated.
How are those different?
These are only allowed for specific product categories like cosmetics, health food, and kitchen utensils. And crucially, they're supposed to operate on a single-level commission structure.
So they have to strip out the MLM part to operate legally. They have to act like normal retail companies.
Theoretically, yes. They're supposed to operate as single-level direct sellers. But sources suggest some sellers circumvent this by establishing bank accounts in Hong Kong, where the practice is legal, while recruiting on the mainland. It's a constant cat-and-mouse game between the regulators and the companies.
It seems like governments everywhere are struggling to pin this jelly to the wall.
They are. Bangladesh and Saudi Arabia have also banned or declared MLM illegal. And the Philippines has a system where they issue a seal of legitimacy for companies they deem are not pyramid schemes, though it's not mandatory.
Saudi Arabia is interesting because their legal system is based on religious law. We should circle back to that.
Yes, and we will touch on the religious reasoning there in a bit. But I want to pivot to the psychological aspect of this.
Okay.
Because we've talked about the math, and the math says don't do it. We've talked about the law, and the law says it's risky. But despite the bans, despite the 99% loss rates, people still join. Millions of people. Why?
That is the million-dollar question. If I told you, hey, come play this game, you have a 99% chance of losing your money, you'd walk away. But people don't walk away from MLMs. They run toward them.
That is where we get into the psychology of the pitch. As we said at the start, the product is peripheral. The true product is hope.
False hope, as one source put it.
Yes. Roland Witzel, a former business professor who studied the industry, noted that the strongest motivational force today is false hope. The pitch sells the dream. It hits on pain points. Debt, dissatisfaction with work, the desire to be present for your kids.
It weaponizes your insecurities. It finds what you're afraid of and offers a solution.
It does. But critics and researchers have observed techniques that go beyond just clever salesmanship. They often describe them as cult-like.
That is a strong word. We usually associate cults with compounds and charismatic leaders in robes. What kind of techniques are we talking about here?
It's about control and belief. It starts with love bombing, building intense enthusiasm and loyalty. You walk into a seminar and everyone is cheering for you, hugging you, telling you how amazing you are. You feel like you belong.
And we all crave belonging. That's a fundamental human need.
Exactly. But then comes the flip side. They discourage critical thinking. If you question the system, if you ask about the average income, you are told you have a poverty mindset. You are told you are being negative.
So if the business fails, it's not because the business model is flawed, it's because you are flawed.
Precisely. It frames success in the business as a moral virtue and failure as a personal lack of faith or effort. If you fail, it's not the system's fault. It's because you didn't want it enough. That is a very powerful psychological trap.
It's a way of deflecting all criticism. Any negative outcome is your fault.
It is. There's also what some researchers call the use of evangelical discourse, using language that sounds religious, talking about blessings and manifesting success. It blurs the line between business and faith.
And perhaps the most insidious part is how it exploits personal relationships.
Monetizing friendship. That's the core of it.
Yeah. We joked about the "Hey hun" message earlier, but it really is tragic. You are encouraged to view every interaction as a sales opportunity. Your friends, your family, your neighbors, they all become prospects.
They call it your warm market.
And think about what that does to your social life. If every time I see you, I try to sell you shampoo, eventually you start inviting me to dinner. And then when your outside friends pull away, who is left?
The people inside the MLM, your upline and your downline, they become your new family. They're the only ones who get it.
So if you think about leaving the business,
You risk losing your entire social network. It creates this intense isolation that keeps people trapped, even when they know they're losing money.
speaking of the intersection of culture and MLM, we have to talk about a specific geography. We have to talk about Utah.
The Utah phenomenon. It is fascinating.
I didn't realize this until I saw the data, but Utah is basically the Silicon Valley of MLMs.
It is. It has been named the unofficial world capital of multi-level marketing.
Is that just anecdotal, or is there data there?
It is backed by numbers. Utah is home to at least 15 major MLMs companies like Nu Skin, doTERRA, Young Living. It has more MLMs per capita than any other state.
Why Utah? Is it the altitude, the mountains? What's the connection?
Scholars have linked this directly to the demographics, specifically the high population of members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Now, we need to be careful here. We aren't saying the religion causes the MLM, but there is a cultural overlap, right? A sort of fertile ground.
Exactly. It's about cultural fit. There are several factors at play. First, think about the missionary experience.
Right. Many members go on missions when they are young.
For 2 years, they learn to knock on doors, handle rejection, and present a message with conviction.
Those are straight-up sales skills. That's sales training 101.
They are transferable skills. If you can sell a theology to a stranger in a foreign country, you can definitely sell a vitamin supplement to your neighbor.
That makes a lot of sense. What else?
Then you have the philosophy of self-reliance, which is a core tenet. It aligns perfectly with be your own boss pitch of MLM.
And there is the factor of tight-knit trust networks within the community.
A huge factor. If Brother Jones from the ward tells me this is a good opportunity, I trust Brother Jones more than I trust a TV commercial.
Exactly. Affinity fraud is the dark side of this, but even with legitimate companies, that trust accelerates the spread. If someone you know and trust from church recommends something, you're more likely to listen. And the sources mention traditional gender roles as well as a contributing factor.
Yes. In communities where there is a strong cultural preference for mothers to stay home with children, MLM is often pitched as the perfect solution. Make a full-time income on part-time hours while the baby naps.
Which brings us back to that gap between promise and reality. Because, as we know, it's rarely part-time hours, and it's almost never a full-time income.
And the locals know this. The notes mention a pretty biting acronym used by some people in Utah.
Oh, I saw this. It made me laugh, but it also made me wince.
Yes, the source notes that the initials MLM have been sardonically reinterpreted by some as Mormons losing money.
Ouch, that's rough.
It is, but it highlights that even within the community where these companies thrive, there's a very real awareness of the financial pitfalls.
We touched briefly on Saudi Arabia banning MLM earlier, but I want to go back to the religious views, specifically in Islam. Because while Utah culture seems to, in some ways, embrace it, Islamic finance has a very different take.
A very different take. This is a significant part of the global picture. Many Islamic jurists and religious bodies consider MLM to be haram or prohibited.
And what is the theological reasoning? Is it just because people lose money?
It's deeper than that. It centers on a few core principles of Islamic finance. First, deception. The pitch, the promise of easy wealth, is viewed as misleading.
Okay, so it's dishonest.
Yes. Second, it's considered to resemble riba, which refers to interest or usury. And third, and this is maybe the most important one, gharar.
Gharar. What does that mean?
It means excessive uncertainty or risk. In Islamic finance, transactions need to be clear and transparent. You pay for a product, you get a product. But in MLM, the participant is paying money for a venture where the outcome is not just uncertain, but statistically highly unlikely.
So because the odds are so stacked against you, that 99% loss rate, it's viewed as a form of gambling.
Exactly. It is viewed as a form of gambling or speculation rather than legitimate trade. They argue that the transaction is fundamentally flawed because the participant is paying for the right to sell and recruit rather than just trading goods for a fair price.
It is fascinating to see how different legal and cultural systems interpret the exact same business model.
It really is.
In the U.S., it is legal until you cross a specific line. In China, it is socially disruptive and banned. In Islamic finance, it is religiously prohibited deception.
It really highlights that while the mechanics, the blue person recruiting the red person, are the same everywhere, the interpretation of what that means for society and for the individual varies wildly.
So we have covered the structure, the economics, the legal battles, and the cultural impact. It is a massive industry generating billions in revenue.
Billions. But as we have learned, that revenue is generated on the backs of a workforce where 99% are losing money.
And that is the central tension of this whole deep dive, isn't it? It is a business model that sells prosperity, but structurally relies on the majority failing.
And it has evolved. Remember, this started with people selling perfume and vacuum cleaners door to door. It was a simple exchange of goods, but it has mutated into selling the business of selling itself.
And that evolution is key. When the product becomes the opportunity, the dynamics change completely.
Which brings us to our final thought for this deep dive. We always like to leave you with something to chew on, a little brain food for the road.
So here is the thought. If we accept the data, and the data from government sources and the companies themselves, it's pretty clear that distributors are often the primary purchasers of the product.
Buying starter kits, garage qualifying, monthly minimums, all of that.
If they are the ones buying the stuff, we have to ask a fundamental question.
Who is the customer?
Exactly. If the primary customer of an MLM is the distributor, and the primary product being sold is the opportunity rather than the shampoo or the juice, does the business model actually rely on the physical product at all?
Or is the product just a legal prop? A MacGuffin, if you will. Is it just there to satisfy the FTC, while the real business is simply the transfer of money from the people at the bottom to the people at the top?
It changes how you look at that next "Hey, hun" message, doesn't it? When you are offered an opportunity, maybe the first question to ask yourself is the revenue coming from a customer or is it coming from a recruit?
That is the question that defines the line between a business and a scheme.
That is all for this deep dive. Thanks for listening. And seriously, check out the show notes if you want to see the graphs on that Amway data.
Yes.
It will blow your mind.
It really will.
We will catch you on the next one.
Goodbye.